Hey there, entrepreneurs. My name is Sushant, and welcome to Trip Talks. This is a show where I interview successful e commerce entrepreneurs, business executives, and thought leaders, and ask them questions about their business story, and also dive deep into some of the strategies and tactics that they have used to start and grow their businesses. And today, I'm really excited to welcome Phil Unger to the show. Phil is the founder of the Flute Center of New York. Flute Center sells flutes, piccolos, sheet music, and a wide range of flute related accessories. And today I'm going to ask Phil a few questions about his entrepreneurial journey and some of the strategies and tactics that he has used to start and grow his business. So thank you so much for joining me today at Trip Talk. Uh, Phil, really appreciate it. So let's get right into it. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So I know I did a little bit of a research in your background, and I think you have an interesting story. I think you were trying to do something different, and you accidentally got into music business. Can you share a little bit about, how you got the idea, how you got into the music industry, flute business, and how did you decide to start your e-commerce business?
Thanks, Sushant. I appreciate you welcoming me into your new venture. I guess it's relatively new. And sure, it wasn't exactly by accident. Um, I had gone to university and was ready to graduate with a degree in radio television when I realized that this really wasn't what was going to make me happy in life. So I despaired a bit. I had about 6 months left to finish my degree. And I went to my parents and I said, I'm not sure that this is really what I want to do. It's a cutthroat business, and I'm not really a cutthroat guy. So my mother said, Phil, you've always been good with your hands. You love taking things apart, figuring out how they work. And being a minor musician myself, and my father being a professional musician, I had grown up around a music store in my hometown of Dayton, Ohio, and spent some time in that store watching the owner of that business repair instruments. So I was somewhat familiar with the field, uh, at least by sight. And my mom said, "What about musical instrument repair?" And I thought, that sounds like something I might really enjoy. Coincidentally, if you read any studies about job ratings from most stressful to least stressful, musical instrument repairman is the least stressful job uh, just about on the planet. At least
Okay.
that's what these studies say. So anyway, so there was one school in the country in a town called Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, that was the best program available. It was a very intensive year-long program where you work 8 to 5 every day, and they only take 20 students. And I went there and I interviewed. They accepted me as a student, but I had to wait 6 months, which is almost exactly how much time I had left to finish my degree in school. So I finished my degree in school, I got my diploma, and I went out and I trained for a year, and that's how it happened. And then there was an evolution between that repair um, uh, diploma that I got
Hmm.
and now having the largest flute business in the world.
So did your business start out as a retail store first, I'm assuming, and then you
No,
got into e-commerce,
no,
or?
it didn't. It started out as a repair business, and I made a decision because I saw that there was a niche market with professional flutes. Uh, because at the time I repaired all woodwind and all brass instruments, but I saw that there was a not just a niche market, but there was a whole community built up around the flute, an unusual community, different than other instruments, different than saxophones, different than strings, violins. There's a very cohesive tightly knit international community of flutists that we all know each other. Doesn't matter what country you're from. And so anyway, I decided to specialize in professional flutes. I got some more training in Boston, and I moved away from all the other instruments, specialized in flute repair. And as an offshoot of the repair business, I don't quite even remember how it happened, but I started helping people sell their instruments, buy their instruments, and it grew from there.
And
Of
how
course,
much?
this was well before any e-commerce was even a thing.
Yeah. So it almost seems like you did spend a considerable time or your professional life really just becoming the expert on the flute repair side of things, and then slowly, organically, you just realize that there is a business for selling and buying flute. I mean, it's very interesting based on some of the research that I did and some of the numbers that I saw. Your business is doing really, really well. And can you share, like, I mean, I wouldn't have imagined that there's such a huge demand for flutes. Can you share a little bit about the market? Like, as you said, it's a global market. Are you selling, like, are most of your customers globally? Is it North America based?
Well,
And
most of the
and what
customers.
it like? Who are the people who are actually buying the flute?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, we sell, student flutes to very expensive flutes made of solid gold, platinum, and silver. Um, so we reach all markets. We do, by virtue, I think, of being in New York City and having visiting orchestras constantly from all over the world, we do quite a bit of international sales as well. But obviously, the vast majority of our business is national. But we sell to flutists, all over America and the world, and we deal with professional players from many orchestras all over the world. Matter of fact,
And
just today I sold a flute to a guy from Israel.
as you said, like your company is, you're saying, it's the largest flute-centric company in the world. Is that
By far.
true?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So, I mean, it seems like, I mean, what other countries or what other places in the world are big around flute?
Well, there's 4 major flute-centric companies in America, and then there's some others in Europe. There's a few others and Japan and Korea. There's a few places where there's also some large flute businesses. And we not only sell new instruments, my business, but we're also the largest consignment shop in the world by far. We do, I think, $2 million a year just in other people's instruments. So there's many different facets of our business, and of course now, with the advent of the internet and shopping carts, we're a big part of that movement as well.
And are most of your flutes created in-house, or are
No,
you
we're
selling
not. We're
mostly
not a
from
manufacturer.
Okay.
Yeah, we represent manufacturers around the world, and with every manufacturer, we are their single largest distributor for every brand of flute. We are the single largest distributor for just about every in America.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the sales cycle like? I'm assuming like some of the more expensive flute? Like, does it require one individual? I mean, it's almost like buying a car. I mean, if it's
Some of
it's
our
such an expensive item.
some of our
And
food costs more than a car. Yes.
yeah, so I'm assuming like some of the introductory flutes that are not as expensive, people are easier. It's easier for them to buy online versus some of the more expensive items.
Yeah,
They're
that's an interesting question. That's true. The vast majority of our online sales are the student line to intermediate line in the price point. It's $500 to I would say $2,000. In which case, these are customers that one will never meet and two will probably never know. And then flutes that are maybe more handmade and or more expensive, normally those players want to play them first because it's a very personal voice for each player. What one flute that may work for one player may not be the voice that another player is looking for. So, although that being said, we do have sales on the internet for $10,000 flutes that the person doesn't play first. So, but for the most part, they do.
Can you share a little bit about just the music of flute? Do you need like does it differ based on how expensive an instrument is or how uh, complicated, in terms of the different uh, buttons and things like that, or that are on the instrument versus like, a simple wooden made flute? Does the music quality differ from different flute instruments?
Well,
And
that's a great question. All flutes mechanically are the same. A modern system flute that people play in orchestras and high school bands. It doesn't matter if it's 500,000 or 100,000. It's exactly the same mechanism. Not maybe in terms of quality, but in terms of the keys that are on the instrument. So, in that way, they're all the same. Now, you may ask, is a more expensive flute inherently better than a lesser expensive flute? And the answer is not necessarily. It depends on what the player is looking for. So, gold obviously is more expensive than silver. Is gold better than silver? It's different than silver. So if that's the sound that you're looking for, then that's what you'll buy. But it isn't inherently a better flute because it's made of a different material. And some players like the sound of a wooden flute. So some buy wood. So I hope that answers your question.
so it really depends, what I guess it's not about the instrument, it's about the sound or the music that someone is trying to compose. I guess that's probably
It has to do with the way that a player connects with that instrument. It's the connection that the player makes. For instance, we had, as I mentioned before, an Israeli guy in today. Actually, he was here all day yesterday and all day today. He played many, many instruments, and he finally found one that he connected with. And after playing probably a dozen instruments, and he connected with this flute, and he said, okay, this is going to be my voice for maybe for the rest of my life. And that's the flute he bought. So, so that's what it's about. And that's really who we are at the Flute Center of New York, which is the name of my business. It's not so much about selling flutes as it is about making connections between the player and the voice that they want. And the flute is by its very nature the closest instrument to the human voice, because there's nothing that stands in the way of your breath and the sound of the instrument. Your breath is the sound of the instrument. There's no reed, there's no mouthpiece, there's nothing. There's only lips and a small hole. So the flute, by its very nature, is an extension of your voice, like an opera singer. So it's a very personal and nuanced connection that our customers make with their instrument.
And you mentioned that something that the community around flute, or the flute community, is more unique than maybe other instruments and so forth. Can you share a little bit about the culture of flute playing around the world, the community?
I can. Yes, I can speak to that. It's I'm part of a very special community. Really, it's unique and inclusive. The thing that I'll say about a flutist and their instrument, and it's hard to put it into words for your audience exactly, but the connection that a flutist has with their instrument, I believe, is somehow different from all other musicians and their instruments. I may be wrong in this, or with exceptions, but the connection between a flute player and their instrument is not much different than the connection between a mother and her child. That's really the way they love their flute. They take it with them everywhere. They pamper it. They take care of it. They make sure it's performing to its best ability all the time. And there's a very special relationship between the player and the instrument, which I think is different than other instruments. So maybe that's the basis of their connection to their instrument. Then you build in the community. So, musicians are always trying for maybe a better job, or trying to get into this orchestra, or maybe get a professorship at this university or this conservatory, this music conservatory. And especially with the advent of social media, they talk about it. And there's many, many forums on the internet just for flutists. And many of these forums have, tens of thousands of subscribers. So in this way, we're connected to each other. And then we also have master classes that travel around the world, for that famous flutists give. This is something that we do. As a matter of fact, just last week, just a few days ago, we had the principal flutist of the New York Philharmonic give a master class in our shop just last week. So this is a way that brings the community together. He may do a master class in another country, maybe in Asia or some other place soon. And so we find ourselves connected. And if somebody wins a job with an orchestra, they post it for all to see, and everybody goes, "Congratulations, we're so happy for you." Or somebody doesn't win the position, they post about that too. And everybody goes, "We're so sorry, but I'm sure you'll do better next time." So we have a very close-knit community internationally of players that actually makes our job in my business much easier, because we have a built-in audience, so to speak. So if we post something within minutes, hours, days, or weeks, everyone in the world sees it. Every flutist, A lot of flutists in the world will see it. And no matter what anybody posts, within minutes, hours, days, or weeks, the whole community knows about it. It's really quite remarkable. So when we do some sort of promotion, we have a very targeted audience that is easy to reach. And we don't
So I'm
really
assuming,
go outside of that.
so I'm assuming that like from a marketing perspective, you're marketing to the community first. You're not, I'm assuming you're not as worried about going out and recruiting the new flutist who's trying to get his or her first instrument, because they're probably
I mean, that's probably where Shopify comes in, or the shopping cart, because those are people that are, many of them, not yet part of the community, because they're just, their parents are just getting their children involved in a music program. So, we reach them in different ways. And we hope someday that those children, those kids will, stick with it and also become part of this larger community that we have. So
So do you do paid advertising, or
we
can you
do.
share a little bit about your marketing, and how do you
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
what is the best way to bring in customers? And I'm assuming a big part of your
well,
business probably.
it's multifaceted, but we do pay, I guess it's Google for, so that we can come up and in a search. And we reach out in community ways. We have, as I mentioned, master classes and recitals that we do once or twice a month in-house with important players from around the world. And we have a podcast series that I think we're into our 7th or 8th season now, much like what you're doing here. And we've now switched over to video, much like you're doing here. And then we have other outreach programs. We have a special club for teachers that has benefits for them, has benefits, for the teacher, has benefits for the student. So we have a vast network of teachers that are part of this club called Club FCNY. And we work with influencers in the industry, and they create content for the Flute Center of New York. So we branch out in many different areas.
Are you finding that as a form of music, flute, people are adopting, like, as a trend, like, are more people getting into flute playing, or is this something that
Good.
is
It's a good question, and it's a question that I wish I had the answer to. I can say that our business model is growing year over year. Now, is that because we're taking more market share, or is it because more people are starting to play the flute because of the pandemic or whatever? And I honestly don't have the answer to that. I don't think we're taking that much more market share. I do think that there's more people playing, and there's as we're a great company. We're a very special company. We've got about 20 full-time people, and we're like a family. And to shop with us, or to have any interaction with us, even if it's just over the phone, is a special experience for our customers, because everyone at the Flute Center is so nice and so knowledgeable, and we really help, and the customer comes first in all matters. So because of that, and because of the experience that people have, I mean, if you were to go look at our our Google reviews, which I encourage all your listeners to do, you'll find that we have just about all 5-star reviews. People love us, love working with us, love shopping with us. So, I've been doing this for, I think, about 42 years now. So, if you're honest, ethical, and transparent in your business practices, that word gets around and it spreads. And, it's a multiplier. So we're doing the right thing, and it's reflected in the experience that our customers have and in our numbers.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the reason I got curious about that is because, in media, in popular media, when you think about like musical instrument, when someone is trying to learn a musical instrument, you're usually, you come across piano, like you come across guitar and, a lot of other instruments. And I would say, I'm not really a music person, but I don't really come across flute and flute playing that much. I'm from India, and I think there's flute players in India.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's
you
yeah,
know,
but it's bansuri, yeah, yeah. So it's made of so bans is called that. What is it called?
bamboo.
Uh, Bamboo, yeah. So it's made out of bamboo. But yeah, it's interesting that I don't come across like in popular culture flute playing or flute players. It's very rare to see. So
Well,
I guess that
I can only answer that by saying that you're running in the wrong crowds.
okay, all right. That could be the case, because I'm not focused on music. Maybe I'm not very aware of it.
That's okay.
But I guess
You're
my
forgiven.
question would be what makes a good or a great flute player? Um, and how does like
What
in
makes
this
a great
community?
interviewer?
Well, I guess
It's
for
practice,
me, it's
practice, and practice.
practice. Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
sometimes an innate ability doesn't hurt. But believe me, the everyone that works for me has either a master's or a doctorate in flute performance. They're all, besides being the greatest people on earth, they're all great players. And but believe me, they didn't get there by accident. It
Yeah.
requires a lifelong commitment to practicing 5 hours a day.
Wow, that's a lot.
Sometimes longer.
You
Yeah, yeah.
so
So
so so I guess my question would be like, is a great flute player who can read a sheet of music and play that music flawlessly, or is it someone who can actually come up with new music? Like the people that maybe yourself and the people in your company, like is it are they coming up with new tunes and music and those kind of things also?
I think you're confusing playing an instrument with composing music. Um,
Okay.
they there are players that are classical players. There are players that are jazz players, and there's lots of world music that there are players that play those genres of music. As a matter of fact, the guy that bought the flute today showed me a video. I he travels the world, and he was no, not Tanzania. He was someplace in Africa, and he got to meet not the only player in his country, but one of the only players in his country. And he showed me a video that he took of the two of them. They went to a lake somewhere in Africa, in this man's country, and they played duets, and it was mostly improvisation, and they were two great improvisers. So, there are different flutists that like to play different kinds of music, and sometimes they improvise, which is not exactly on the page what they're playing. But for the most part, most musicians are playing notes that are written for them.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the e-commerce aspect of your business. Um, because to me, it seems like, maybe you enjoy or, part of your business definitely is about that in-person experience and giving the person the ability to touch and play the flute and make that connection with the instrument. Um, can you share a little bit about, what is the difference between like the people who come into your retail store to shop versus like your e-commerce business? What is uh, the number difference in terms of people who buy from your e-commerce business versus like
Well, I
come in
mean,
store?
I can't exactly define what the difference is because I don't meet the e-commerce customers.
Okay.
I imagine they're not so different from those that come into the store. Um, but those that come into the store live in proximity to our store. We kind of serve as a tri-state region, Connecticut, well, I should say New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. We do have a lot of people that come in constantly from those states and further because, everyone eventually travels to Manhattan. Everyone wants to see Manhattan. So more often than not, it's really quite amazing. They'll land in one of our 3 airports, and the first stop they make with their luggage is the Flute Center of New York. We are a destination. Sometimes I
Well,
like to call us the Mecca. So anyway, so I don't think those that buy flutes from us online are really any different. They're just too far away to come to the store. So I think it's the same audience.
I guess from an experience perspective, what I'm asking is, if somebody is like, do you see that people who buy e-commerce, are they like, do you see more exchanges or returns or something like that where you have to accommodate that, or you have to offer them like shipping labels so that they can
Oh, well,
exchange or return, you know, if they
well,
didn't like the flute or
yeah, good questions. We have very few returns. Um, we are, oh, excuse me, just one moment, if you don't mind.
okay.
Uh, I'll be right back, okay?
No worries, no worries.
I just, sorry, I just had to switch chairs with my wife, who's a
Okay, no
therapist,
worries.
and I
Okay, no
think
worries.
if her client saw her in a different chair,
Okay,
that'd be good.
no
So
worries.
anyway, um, so what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Around returns and exchanges
Oh,
with the
yes.
e-commerce business.
So
Yeah.
we do have a return policy. It's seldomly used for a couple of reasons. One, we give our clients an opportunity to play test the flute before they buy it. So, and you mentioned shipping. Our shipping is free. So
So how does someone play test?
we ship the flutes out. We have
Okay.
at any given time hundreds of trials around the country. So we give them the flute. They can try it in the comfort of their home or their professors or their teacher's home. And so by the time they finally make the decision of which flute they want to buy, they've pretty much honed in on that instrument. And so therefore there's very few returns. And so that's kind of our business model. We let you try the instrument first before you have to buy
So
it.
does that mean that like they will buy it, they'll actually pay for it, but then there's a trial period, 1 month or 15 days, whatever, and then they have the opportunity to just return it back. Like, do you send the return label with the shipping
Yes,
package?
we work all that out. We send the return label. Yes,
Okay, that's very
make it
interesting.
simple. We make it
Okay,
very easy for someone to buy a flute.
okay. And in terms of like your fulfillment and shipping, like, do you do that in-house, or is that something that's outsourced
We
to like
do
third-party
it's all
logistics?
done in-house.
Okay, okay. Um, I'm going to ask you a little bit about your team. What is your team? I know you mentioned you have like 20 full-time staff. Can you share a little bit about what roles they have? What is your role in the company right now, and what are other
You
people's?
know, interestingly enough, I'm probably not exactly the person to talk to about that. I have a CEO, Julian, who runs that part of the business. I've delegated a lot of responsibilities to different teams. We have different teams that have different functions within the business. And it really is run like a very well-oiled machine. So I can't
So what is
exactly.
your role? What is your role in the company right now? Like more of
Yeah,
just a vision, just making sure
yeah,
everything is.
I would say myself along with my CEO are the visionaries of the company, and I honestly kind of stay out of the processes of the business. We're very advanced in our in the processes that we bring into the company. Um, all these third-party companies that we use, and quite honestly, I don't even know how much of that functions exactly because it isn't my realm. I've
Hmm.
given that over to people that much better understand those worlds than I do. And I think it was a smart decision on my part.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
yeah, the brand, our brand is, I think, unquestionably the number one flute brand in the world. And so it didn't happen by accident. It happened because I surround myself with the best team of people that any owner could ask for. And we're not competitive with each other. I should say they're not competitive with you. They respect each other. They love each other. They support each other. They help each other, and we all have a common goal that we love working towards. And quite honestly, I think it's one of the greatest places, work environments. If you happen to play the flute, it's probably the greatest work environment you could ever ask for, except for maybe sitting in a great orchestra. But so anyway, we've built something that we believe to be very special and unique in any industry, not just our industry.
Very good. Talking about vision, what do you have a future vision for your business? I mean, it seems like you're already
You certainly do.
doing pretty good.
Not something I'm going to talk about with you now, but we always have we're always moving forward, and we have always new ideas. And you throw them at the dartboard, and some stick and some don't. But we we're always thinking of new ways to reinvent ourselves.
In every entrepreneur's journey, there's always mistakes made, lessons learned, failures, so to speak. Um,
Absolutely.
what has been, maybe talking specifically about the e-commerce business, what has been some, one or two top mistakes that you think, or lessons learned that you think, it was a learning experience for you,
Well,
that
I mean,
other entrepreneurs can learn from you?
well, as far as e-commerce, I can't really speak to that. I don't think we've maybe in the way that that our spending has happened in the past, we've made adjustments to how our spend is implemented. Because it's anyway. Again, that isn't exactly my slice of the cake, but they constantly reevaluate, what is the return on the money we spend with e-commerce, because the metrics are there. You can look at the metrics and they tell you clicks and all that stuff that
Conversions, yeah.
But I know click is like an operative word there. And so we're always reinventing that or redefining exactly how we do that. We've made other mistakes along the way. We now, over the past 10 years, we've really focused in on never reusing a box, always having a new box for everything we ship, making sure the flutes pass a very rigorous test before they go out, so that nobody gets a flute that isn't playing perfectly. A lot of companies don't have the manpower to make that happen. And that's something that we didn't do as well in the past. And so we realized that was that needed to be a focus of the company. Making sure that the flutes are clean and fingerprint free, and what do you call it? We spray them down with a special alcohol
disinfectant.
A disinfectant, yeah. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. So we learn and we grow and we adapt.
That's great. Before I move on to rapid fire segment, are you a flute player? Do you play flute regularly?
I know I'm just about the only one in the company that does it. I mean, I can play the flute. I can blow a flute, but I'm not a player. That wasn't my instrument.
Okay. So could you not have gone like in a different instruments way, or you just realized that
I could have absolutely gone in many different directions, but I saw this opportunity, and flutes are small, easily transportable, and they can be expensive. And there's a great community of people, and of which I love, and I'm very much a part of. And I now I can pretty much travel anywhere in the world and have someone to share a meal with, no matter where I go. And as a matter of fact, next week, I'm having a guy come in from Vienna. He's going to spend a week with me in my house. I have another guy coming from a very famous symphony orchestra. He's going to spend a week in my house. So, this is the world I've created for myself. I mean, I made a decision early on that I wanted to make this a very personal business. So when I had players come in from around the world, they didn't just come in, play a couple flutes, buy one and leave. I said, let's have dinner. Let's have lunch. Stay over my house next time you come. And in this way, I built very intimate and long-lasting relationships with flutists from all over the world. So it's really great. It's given me a world far beyond what I ever dreamt of or hoped for.
Awesome. So now I'm going to move on to our rapid fire segment. And in this segment, I'm going to ask you a few quick questions, and you have to answer them in a word or a sentence or so. So I'll skip the book question. I'll ask you Any other product or idea in the current e-commerce, retail, or tech landscape that you feel excited about?
Yes. Yep. I can't say anything more than that.
Okay. No other idea that you're excited about right now.
There are
Anything in your business?
there are
Okay.
lots of ideas that I'm excited about right now, but I'm not going to talk about them on your program. But yes,
Okay.
answer is yes.
Any productivity tool, software, or a productivity tip?
We're constantly introducing new productivity software and even hardware into into the way we operate. I think we just started the EOS system. I hope I didn't misspeak. That may not be the right acronym, but I think it is. Anyway, so yes, we're constantly introducing new ways of tracking our customers and just being more efficient and helping the team be more efficient. And these are all programs that are inside their computer that help us,
Okay.
third-party vendor programs.
Okay. Any other startup or business in e-commerce, retail, or tech that you think is currently doing great things?
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to other e-commerce businesses. I'm too busy.
Okay. Another entrepreneur or business person whom you look up to, or someone who inspires you?
Yeah, I had early on when I first came to New York, I had a mentor that kind of I became a partner with him. I didn't become a partner in his business, but I moved my business into his business, and we worked cooperatively in Manhattan out of that space. And he was a really smart guy. He
Mm.
owned some big music stores that are well known, um, and I really respected him a lot. And he showed me a lot of ways in which I wanted to be, and other ways in which I didn't want to be. And so he was a big influence in my life, and so I very much looked up to him.
Okay. Final question. Best business advice you ever received or you would give to other entrepreneurs?
Um, I would say, for me, it's all about the customer. So don't look for ways to say no. Always look for ways to say yes. Figure out a solution that works for everyone with every problem. I actually, we had a problem just last week, and I immediately called our customer, even though they had agreed to this one solution. And I said, don't worry, I will do whatever it takes to make you happy. And, we had to eat a little bit of the profit from that. But in the end, she was delighted. I was happy. Their teacher was happy. We were all happy. So that would be my advice, is to the customer is always right.
Yeah, I think that probably goes a long way, right? Because in the long run, as you said, this is a tight-knit community and people know each other and talk about it. So
That's right.
if somebody has a great experience, they'll talk about it and they'll probably come back to shop again. They'll recommend other people. So I think in the long run, it's probably more beneficial than anything else. So yeah, I think
Read
that's a great.
our reviews.
Yeah,
That's how you run a company. That's all you have to do. If any of your
awesome.
listeners out there, read our Google reviews for the Flute Center of New York. That's how you run a company.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Phil, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your business strategies and tactics, and yeah, and sharing your inspiring other entrepreneurs with your story. So yeah, thank you so much again for your time today. Really appreciated it, and thank you for joining me today at Trip Talks.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me in.